gigantic welfare project on the scale of the ancient pyramid building. And the ultimate goal is to make the earth look very small, to present the people of the world with an external threat to this earth, a superior race from some other planet, vastly superior to us in intellect, philosophy, and technology, in order to cause the dissolution of nation-states, the dissolution of all existing religions, and the formation of the world totalitarian socialist government. NASA is one of the main instruments of this deception. And if you study NASA from its beginning all the way up to the present day, and if you are a student of the ancient mystery religions of antiquity, you will see parallels and anniversary dates that coincide sometimes to the moment. You will see events that take place here on Earth, on the Moon, on the Mars, and around other planets on the exact same latitude and longitudinal points on those planets where certain things have taken place here in the past and take place now in the present. If you studied the Apollo space program, you must have noticed the reference to the ancient gods Apollo. If you studied the emblem of the Apollo space program, especially the first emblem, ladies and gentlemen, you noticed that it carried on its crest the symbol of Apollo, who was the sun, also known as Osiris, the moon, Isis. In the center you will see the constellation of Orion. In its center are arrayed in the exact position the three pyramids of Giza in Egypt. And the earth, of course, represents the full body of initiates known as Horus. You will notice that the spacecraft that left this earth and suffered the symbolic death and the resurrection from the ashes was Apollo 13. 13 being the number of death and resurrection, the number of the phoenix rising from the ashes. Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen. Oh yes. And now we have a man named Richard Hoagland, who knows that most of the NASA photographs and videotapes have been faked. This has been brought to his attention by many of us. He has ignored this obvious evidence and continues to use as the only evidence in his possession for the existence of life on other planets, NASA photographs. If one has been proven to be faked, then they are all in question, ladies and gentlemen. But so many have been proven to be faked that none of them can ever be used as evidence for anything. But what is the goal of Mr. Hoagland? A regular guest on the Art B.S. Bell show, which many of you listen to. I don't know if you listen to it out of ignorance or because it's entertaining or because you have this morbid curiosity to listen to the patently absurd, the ludicrous, the insane. But nevertheless you do, and I know that many of you enjoy it because I get letters from you talking about how much you enjoy it. And that's okay. You know, I believe in freedom. And I admonish you to listen to everyone. Read everything. Believe absolutely nothing unless you can prove it in your own right. But what is the gist of this? What is the agenda, ladies and gentlemen? I'm about to impart that to you now. But first I must lay some groundwork. Many years ago, when I was with the Office of Naval Intelligence, ladies and gentlemen, I saw a document, and I disclosed this in 1988, that said that there were alien or extraterrestrial artifacts on the Moon and Mars, and that this had been disclosed by our space program. I knew what some of those artifacts would be before they were ever even supposedly discovered by others. You see, because I saw this information in 1972. Some of it in 1971, as a matter of fact. And so I knew that sooner or later someone was going to come forward with a photograph that showed a face on Mars, and pyramids on Mars and on the Moon. And by studying the pictures released by NASA and NASA publications, I was able to find many of these objects long before anyone ever talked about them. And then along came a book that claimed we never went to the Moon. I read that book and began looking at the evidence presented in that book, and lo and behold, the man was right. If we went to the Moon, ladies and gentlemen, it was not in the Apollo space program, where it was impossible. Could not have been done. And any good student in high school science, and I'm talking high school science, ladies and gentlemen, freshman, sophomore year, can prove that nobody went to the Moon in the Apollo space program. It is that easy. So what is this all about? Well, ladies and gentlemen, they could not present us with a believable external threat to this earth in the form of an extraterrestrial intelligence vastly superior to us if we, in our technological development, could not even visit our own satellites. So one reason was to convince the people of the world that we could travel to the Moon, and if we could travel to the Moon, other intelligent life from elsewhere in this solar system or the universe could travel to this Earth. For this is an old plan of the Illuminati. John Dewey said at a dinner for Viscount Ishii and the Japanese Imperial delegation in 1917 in New York City, and the exact quote is in my book, Behold a Pale Horse, in the appendix. I wrote the book the latter 5 years of the 80s and published it in 1991, actually December of 1990, but they didn't think that it was going to come off the presses until January of 1991, so the copyright date inside is 1991. But it doesn't matter, it's just a month. John Dewey said, "Someone once told me that the best way to end wars forever and unite all humanity on this earth in a world government would be if we were attacked by some other species from some other planet." That's what he said, ladies and gentlemen, in 1917, and that's at least how old this hypothesis is. Or I should say, this plan to deceive the world. It was tested in 1938 with the broadcast of Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater's War of the Worlds to present a hoax to find out if it was believable, if the populace would fall for it, and they did. In all of the towns and cities that heard this broadcast, people were terrified. They went outside with shotguns and rifles to look for the alien tripods so that they could shoot them before they destroyed their cities and their families and their industries. And one city, Grover's Mill, they literally, ladies and gentlemen, the citizenry forgot the geography and the construction of their own city, and they shot their own water tower to pieces, thinking that it was one of these giant tripods. In New York City, the next morning the stock market fell precipitously. Some people committed suicide. It was a night of terror. And Congress passed a law making it illegal to do that. Again, on radio. So this is not something that I just dreamed up out of the blue, ladies and gentlemen. It is a true agenda. It is happening. It is being brought about by the Illuminati, and in their typical fashion, they laugh at us, and they use their symbology of the mystery religions, anniversary dates, geological points and locations of monuments that are meaningful to them in all of this. There's a photograph in the House of Temple, the House of the Temple, of the Supreme Council of the 33rd degree of the Scottish Rite of the Southern Jurisdiction of Freemasonry in Washington, D.C. In the foyer, as you walk in, you will see a huge photograph of Neil Armstrong on the moon, holding in front of his spacesuit the Masonic apron. At the time of the Apollo space program, ladies and gentlemen, the head of NASA was a Mr. Kleindienst. It was a reward for his deception on the world. He was, ladies and gentlemen, promoted to the Supreme Grand Inspector General of the 33rd degree of the Southern Jurisdiction of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. He holds that post today. Everything that NASA did was connected to the symbology of the ancient mystery religions of Babylon, Egypt, Greece, India, and many others. It has meaning, ladies and gentlemen, and the purpose is to connect the constellation Orion with the monuments known as the pyramids in Giza in Egypt, pyramids on the moon, and pyramids on Mars. What they're going to tell you is that Mars was populated by an ancient race who destroyed their planet in warfare and had to live underground because of the consequences of these terrible calamities that they visited upon themselves. And at some point in our ancient history, they came to this earth and populated the earth with the survivors of that cataclysm, and that they bred with early man, and the human race was the result of that mixture. The different races being different levels of interbreeding with this extraterrestrial life, and what they call the useless eaters, or what they call the backward races, are the as yet unevolved or undeveloped, unbred humans. Sounds far-fetched, doesn't it? Well, you just keep your eyes and ears open, ladies and gentlemen, because that is the thrust of all that you're going to hear regarding extraterrestrial life, outer space. And you can watch for the path.
Okay, I think that's it.
Finder, this little phony robot that's supposed to be running around on Mars to disclose evidence of life on Mars and ancient art.